Whenever you're going to start listening to something, or you're going to start reading something, reviewing something, you need to be aware of these biases so they don't poison your ability to understand the material. I have to know for myself that as I go through this, I don't like Joe Rogan, okay? That doesn't mean that every single thing Joe says is wrong, though, okay? He might say some things that are factually correct. You cannot let your personal dislike of somebody taint your ability to understand what are otherwise rational or reasonable arguments, number one. Number two, ivermectin seems dumb based on everything I've heard so far. However, there might be a chance that Joe is going to bring up something that we haven't heard before, or that new evidence has come to light that shows that it might be effective. So I have to be aware of these two things so that when stuff comes up, I don't just let my mind automatically go to, oh, Joe said it, he's wrong, he's dumb. Oh, ivermectin's stupid, whatever he says is a lie, okay? No matter what they say in the video, these two prevailing biases are going to carry us through the entire video. The most important part of watching anything is to be aware of our biases, okay? There are two different aspects to an argument that make the conclusion true. You have the validity of an argument, and then you have the soundness of an argument, okay? A valid argument is, given the premises that the conclusion logically follows, then the argument is valid. For the second one, given the premises and an argument, a conclusion that logically follows, if it's valid, but also, if the premises are true, then the argument is sound. So here's an example of two of these. All men are immortal. That's our first premise. Our second premise is Socrates is a man. Our conclusion is, therefore, Socrates is immortal, okay? That is a valid argument, philosophically speaking. The reason why it is valid is because if we assume both our premises are true, then that means that the conclusion logically follows. The argument might be valid, but the argument is not sound, meaning that all men are not immortal. Keep in mind like how arguments work generally and how things flow from one thing to the other, because sometimes what we'll do is we kind of assume that we don't really think about valid arguments in a philosophical sense. We generally assume that every single argument is sound, that if it's valid, it's sound. But the problem is people will make arguments that lack soundness, but will be so busy fighting the validity that we don't actually, or we'll be so busy fighting on other things that we don't actually, we end up fighting against things we don't need to. Let me give an explanation of this, okay? Here's an argument. Men and women are different, and then two might be different people should work different jobs, and then the conclusion might be, therefore, men and women ought to work different jobs. When we hear arguments like this, we're tempted to fight on every single claim. So we would assume that we want to fight every single premise, and what happens is you'll get like caught into arguing like whether or not men and women are the same. But we don't need to argue that. We can actually grant that. We can say like, oh, men and women are different. We can grant premise one. And we might even grant like premise two, where we say like, oh, different people do work different jobs. That's fine. However, we can grant both of those premises, but that doesn't mean that the conclusion logically follows, right? Just because men and women as a class are different, or just because different people work different jobs, doesn't mean that men and women as a whole class are all sufficiently different from one another and close enough and uniqueness to one another that like that men as a class and women as a class ought to work different jobs, right? Hopefully that made sense. As like a more layman's approach to this, sometimes we're so desperate to fight against the conclusion that we know is coming, we want to fight on every single premise that we're given, and then you end up looking like an idiot. So something that is relevant here is somebody might say like, oh, well, the vaccine's not 100% effective. Now, you know that where they're headed with this is you shouldn't get vaccinated. So you're like, wait, no, it is 100%. You might end up fighting on grounds where you don't have strong arguments, and you don't even need to. You can actually grant that like, yeah, it's not 100% effective. Yeah, there can be breakthrough infections. Yeah, it is less effective against different variants. You can grant a lot more than you think, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your interlocutors, the person you're having a conversation with, that their premise will, or that their conclusion will logically follow.
Bro, do I have to sue CNN?
I don't know, do you?
They're making shit up. They keep saying I'm taking horse dewormer. I literally got it from a doctor. It's an American company.
Mm-hmm.
They won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for use in human beings.
Yeah.
And CNN is saying I'm taking horse dewormer.
That's an interesting thing to write down, okay?
What? So
They must know that that's a lie.
There's a lot of people saying it.
Right, but a lot of people can say it.
Okay.
Like the internet says it, who cares?
sure,
But
Well,
CNN is saying it. Like Jim Acosta.
I meant like USA Today, a few other
yeah.
places,
and they're
not just
talking
people.
about ivermectin, right?
Yeah.
So what? Because I don't know. I just saw so much news
Yeah.
about you. I mean, I would talk to you and check on you and see if you're all right. And you're like, you threw the kitchen sink at it. You said,
Yeah.
which was stuff that you took IV drips and what was it
Monoclonal antibodies.
and that what is monoclonal antibodies?
It's the shit they gave Trump.
Monoclonal antibodies. I don't know if they did or not. I don't remember. I heard about him getting an antibody treatment, but I don't remember. But we'll just write this down. They gave Trump monoclonal antibodies.
You already want ivermectin, like
Well, I had this guy on, Dr. Pierre Corey, and he is, what is the organization he's from? Frontline COVID Critical Care Workers.
Dr. Pierre Corey, I think. So he's from Frontline COVID Critical Care Workers.
Well-established doctors, treated thousands of people with COVID.
Well-established doctor or doctors treated thousands of people with COVID.
They found some good efficacy with
Found good efficacy
with ivermectin.
with ivermectin.
Frontline 19 Critical Care Alliance. He had talked to me about it. He's not the only doctor that told me to take it. Multiple doctors told me to take it.
mm-hmm.
It's supposed to have what is the exact thing it's supposed to do? There's something that I highlighted.
So ivermectin, this is cheating. I would put this down if I didn't know, okay? What does ivermectin do? How does it help the coronavirus? The short answer is that ivermectin basically serves to bind to or block a thing that helps cargo transport between the cytoplasm and the nucleus. And when the ivermectin binds to it, it's thought that that's supposed to inhibit a SARS-CoV-2 infection is how it works, but we'll see.
And this is obviously, I'm not a doctor.
But we'll
It says
look this up,
ivermectin was found to be a blocker of viral replicase, REPLICASE protease, and I don't know what this word is. Human TMPRSS2. I don't know. But what they didn't highlight is that I got better.
Yeah, you got better quickly.
They try to make it seem as if like I'm doing some wacky shit that's completely ineffective. And
Right.
CNN was saying that I'm a distributor of misinformation. Also, that was the other thing that happened.
Let's see if we can find that. CNN said Rogan distributes misinformation. I bet we can find a CNN article about that. Also, I'm writing stuff down, by the way, to look up later. So you guys are spamming me links or whatever. You're defeating the entire purpose of why I'm doing this. The goal isn't like, if you're a huge streamer, how do you do research? I'm just showing you how I do it when I'm off stream, okay? Because you guys don't have a chat full of like 5,000 spam linkers or whatever.
In Tokyo, in Japan, which is apparently they're very conservative about the medication that they use and the medications that they endorse. But the Tokyo Medical Association chairman held a live press conference recommending ivermectin to all doctors for all COVID patients.
It's kind of hard to figure out what's the truth in a lot of things. But with regard to this, people go, it's insane to take ivermectin. Like, you see it everywhere. Everyone's like, this is wild. Don't take this shit. And then you have the head of the fucking Tokyo whatever medical commission saying, take ivermectin.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know what's going on, man. You know, there's a lot of speculation. One of the speculations involves the emergency use authorization for the vaccines. That in order for there to be an emergency use authorization, there has to be no treatment for a disease.
Right.
So because there is this treatment in ivermectin, and there's other treatments too.
Right.
This sounds totally not true to me. In order for emergency use authorization to work, there has to be no treatment for a disease. So the vaccine isn't even a treatment. This sounds bullshit. It might be true, but we'll check it out. What are requirements for emergency use authorization? Can vaccines get EUA while other treatments exist? But we'll check.
Because of this, there's a lot of pushback against potential treatments and pretending that they don't really work or that they're conspiracy theories.
Okay, so now we have a conspiracy. I have to qualify what I say. When I say conspiracy, I'm meaning this in a precise way. When I say conspiracy, I don't mean that like, oh, the fucking UFOs are being flown by Bigfoot and blah, blah. When I say conspiracy, what I mean is there's some sort of plan behind the scenes that we're alleging that exists now in order to circumvent like good faith dissemination of information to the American public, I guess. So this is a big claim, okay? So big, okay? Certain treatments, ivermectin, are being suppressed in order to have the EUA for the vaccines. Okay, we'll see if we can find any evidence of that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. This is the grand conspiracy, right? The grand conspiracy is the pharmaceutical companies.
At least he admits it's a grand conspiracy or whatever. That's fine.
On cahoots to try to make anybody who takes this stuff look crazy. But what's crazy is look how better I got.
Yeah.
I got better pretty quick, bitch.
Let's go to like your whole experience.
Yeah.
So you get back from a trip.
So he says Joe Rogan got better pretty quick. Has he been infected before? Do we know? And he's probably not vaccinated. Was he vaccinated? We'll check, but probably not. That's my assumption would be. What is the average COVID-19 case like?
Yeah, I got it. I got all the stuff that I needed. Took it that day. And then Monday I felt pretty fucking good. And I was taking vitamin IV drips every day. High dose vitamin C, vitamin D, and NAD as well. After I did this and I hit it with the NAD and the high dose vitamin C, I think it was 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C in the IV drip, which is like it's very effective. It goes right into your bloodstream, right?
Yeah.
After that and the monoclonal antibodies and all the other stuff, literally on Monday I felt pretty fucking good.
Destiny, how much did Pfizer pay you? I can't believe that there are so many anti-vaxxers on fucking Twitch. What a wild world we live in. Hey, save your shitty comments for the end. If any of you want to come on and argue, I welcome the argument if you want to.
And my favorite is that they're like, do you want same day results? And I go, yeah. And they go, it's expensive. And I go, this fucking hospital stays expensive. What are you talking about? Like, this is thousands of dollars a day.
Are you intentionally ignoring their anecdotal story? Well, there's nothing to write down here. Like, I don't need to fact check their story. Like, it's not really relevant to what we're doing right now.
There was a study that showed that if you've had a previous COVID infection, you're 6 to 13 times more protected than you are with just a Pfizer.
Previous COVID infection means you are 6 to 13 times more protected than with just a Pfizer. I don't know if it's that much more, but a natural infection will always most likely yield a greater immunity than just targeting a single protein, which is what the vaccines do.
Yeah, I gave up the argument. I was arguing with my cousin, who's an ID doctor.
What's an ID doctor?
Infectious disease doctor. So this is what she treats. She's in the hospitals, every day. And she was like, when the Delta variant came out, she was like, this thing is no joke. She's like, this is all I'm seeing. You have to get vaxxed, especially if you're going on tour. And I was like, well, what about, and whatever. I was like, fine, I'll just go.
Yeah. Well, it didn't bother you.
Yeah, it didn't bother me.
I'm still doing that. Like I'll still hawk up little green shit.
Yeah.
Here and there.
So you're what, a week out?
A week yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that long.
But it doesn't feel bad.
Yeah.
Like,
and you were
I
able
had a
to
great workout
you worked out today?
Yeah, I had a great workout today. Felt great. That's my second workout. I had one workout 3 days ago. Then took yesterday off and then worked out again today.
Yeah.
No problem at all. Just feel completely normal.
Great.
Yeah.
And your breathing's fine.
Yeah, except the hocking up little.
Yeah.
But they're little ones.
I don't want to interrupt, but why is that? As in, why does an infection yield more protection? An mRNA vaccine just gives you one protein to train your immune system against. An actual infection has the SARS-CoV-2 virus has 29 different proteins that your body can learn to counter. So if you get an mRNA vaccine, you get protection against that one protein, the spike protein. But if you get an actual infection, your body gets to study and learn more protein structures, or more of the virus's structure, more of the individual proteins that it could theoretically respond against.
How crazy is you?
Things.
Or maybe you're immune to it now from having so much public scrutiny, but like having people wish you got sicker. Isn't that crazy to you?
I didn't pay attention.
It's crazy to me. I mean, I've had people, wish harm on me and threaten me and tell me they wish I was dead and all this stuff. But
fun.
Yeah, you're like, cool, man. Thanks for watching the special. But it's like when you're sick, people are like, I wish you were more sick.
Well, the good news is I was only sick for a day.
That's true. Yeah. It's just wild that there's people that are like, I wish you were more sick. I wish you were in the hospital.
Because I wasn't scared during the entire pandemic. What they would like is that when I did get sick, that I
Yeah.
was really sick
And you
and then
learned your
became
lesson.
really scared and learned my lesson.
Yeah, that's true.
And instead, it's the worst case scenario for them.
Right.
I bounce back about
In
as
a
quick
day.
as you
Yeah.
fucking can.
Yeah.
And they're haters.
Yeah.
But that's their life. You
That's
got to live
true.
like that. Imagine spending any time whatsoever wishing that a person felt bad.
Yeah. That's
It's
true.
the dumbest fucking thing
It's
you could ever
insane.
spend your energy on.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. You can't.
No.
It doesn't.
This is actually very true. Like, again, keep in mind, just because you want something to be true doesn't mean it is true. And, like, be realistic about your expectation for everything. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, like, this guy's going to get the coronavirus and die. Like, no, the vast majority of people that get infected are going to be, like, they're not going to die, okay? Most of them are going to be okay. Some of them will have long-term conditions. Like, most people are going to be okay. Don't mind fuck yourself and think like, oh, my God, I know this, like, 35-year-old guy. He got the coronavirus. I bet he's going to die. No, he's not.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty good. But meanwhile, I don't have a bad message. My message is be healthy.
Okay, there's enough here for us to like look at. Okay, the FLCCC Alliance. Let's see what they are about. What do they say? At the beginning of this, they already kind of made it sound like they're not really going by like published research. It sounds like they're far more on the fringe. That's why they're saying we're doing a collection of things, which isn't necessarily bad. Okay, but like it's also a 501c3, which isn't necessarily bad. But then they have a testimonial page, which isn't necessarily bad. But like, this is kind of weird.
Starting to clear. The heart failures are still there, but it's improved. But if it wasn't for ivermectin, I think I would have been in a bad condition.
You have no way of knowing that. You have no idea if that's the case. Like,
to make a long story short, everyone got better on ivermectin, and I never got sick. I actually got back to the Netherlands. I had 3 PCR tests and traveling and never had a positive. You know, it's crazy because these third world countries that don't have money to invest in vaccines seem to be doing quite well with using this cheap drug ivermectin to treat their population. If you look at India and Goa and Mexico, I mean, they've just blown it out of the water with treating this virus.
okay, I'm drawing from other information here, but the Mexican thing is not true. There's like there's like one southern state, BX Bullet tried to bring this up. The idea that they used ivermectin and they blew it out, that's just, the way that that's presented is not true. None of this has been adopted as medical consensus. While clinical experience and research to update is promising, these products have not been proven to be safe and effective by prospective, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies acceptable to U.S. medical associations or regulatory bodies. Based on increasing evidence, the National Institute of Health, the NIH in Great Britain, recently upgraded ivermectin recommendations for do not use to neither for nor against. Same as for monoclonal antibodies and convalescent plasma. No treatment has been accepted by our public health system as proven to prevent, mitigate, or treat COVID-19. It's just all of these links are dead. How fucking annoying. Joe Rogan has the best doctors in the world versus Destiny. Who do I trust? I mean, Donald Trump himself didn't get hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin. So while your ignorant, poor fucking dipshit, redneck fucking ass is out here simping for these medications and all your favorite fucking celebrities and all that shit that took them, the most powerful man in the world didn't take any of these fucking treatments, okay? Interesting. So they did a review of the... But their meta-analysis wasn't submitted to a journal. It wasn't published anywhere. This is just what they posted on their own nonprofit website. Interesting. That's a huge red flag. But these doctors held a press conference and want to testify at a Senate hearing on early treatments for COVID-19. They maintain that ivermectin is a special combination of antiviral and anti-inflammatory properties that make it useful preventatively for treating early, late stage. It could be true, not in the mind of FLCCC leader Paul Marek, MD, Chief of Pulmonary and Critical Care Medicine at Eastern Virginia Medical School in Norfolk, who co-authored a review and meta-analysis based mainly on studies from outside the U.S. This paper does not offer an objective nor balanced scientific contribution to the evaluation of ivermectin as a potential treatment for COVID-19. The statement provided no information about why these concerns had been raised and acted on now, rather than earlier in the publication process. This isn't the first time that Corey and his colleagues at FLCCC have been accused of making unsubstantiated claims about ivermectin. In December, Corey gave a statement at a U.S. Senate hearing on COVID-19 treatments in which he called ivermectin effectively a miracle drug that could obliterate disease transmission and prevent illness, claims that the Associated Press fact-checkers labeled false at the time. We should probably read this. Corey, who formerly oversaw critical care at the UW Health in Wisconsin, tells the scientists that he now regrets using miracle and other hyperbolic terminology. Based on the evidence Crypto News has collected, we believe the majority of the introduction section of the pro-ivermectin El-Ghazar et al. 2020 study is plagiarized. Some paragraphs appear to have been run through a thesaurus. On occasions where an accurate citation is offered, the authors do not make it clear that the preceding sentence was a verbatim/near verbatim quote. Most telling example of this is of the thesaurus technique is the line when the authors accidentally change severe acute respiratory syndrome to extreme intense respiratory syndrome. What? So severe acute respiratory syndrome is SARS. That's so the virus is called SARS-CoV-2. So if you don't know where the name comes from, SARS, severe, meaning it's a severe disease. Acute, meaning it's short. It's not a long-term disease. It's a short disease. Respiratory syndrome, meaning it affects the respiration system. CoV stands for coronavirus. And then 2, it's the second coronavirus that's been identified or whatever, right? But they used a thesaurus. So instead of saying severe acute respiratory syndrome, so SARS, they changed it to extreme intense respiratory syndrome. So chances of any one of these duplications occurring by chance, let alone all of them, are astronomical. The DREAM study. It is also unlikely that these repetitions of data are due to an innocent copy and paste error when rearranging records in the file, as some columns contain identical patterns of data with minor adjustments to 1 or 2 numbers, possibly to make the fabrication less obvious. Copy my homework, but don't make it obvious. Brown also discovered that many other numbers between the original data and the paper do not match. In some cases, numbers were off by only a couple percent, while in others, the numbers were off by over 10%. I can't believe this paper. Did he or did he not? Christ, okay. We're getting video and subtitles.
アフリカでですね、イベルメクチンをそういう年に一度予防的に投与している国と、そうではない国で、こういう
This is really, really, really bad evidence. But maybe he'll say more.
そういう話
When we have all these elements, we cannot say that ivermectin is absolutely not effective. That's good. So he's being responsible here, right? He said earlier, one cannot conclude that ivermectin is effective only on the basis of these figures.
有効だというふうにそう言えるわけではないかもしれませんが、こういったものを見てもですね、イベルメクチンは全く効かないとか、そういう話はむしろ私はないんではないかと思ってますので、今後はそういうふうに知見をしっかり
We can do other studies to confirm its efficacy, but we're in a
検討が
crisis
必要ですけれど
situation.
も、こういうかなり逼迫した状況下ではですね、イベルメクチンの使
With
用という
regard to
の
the
を
use of ivermectin, it is obviously necessary to obtain the informed consent
も
of
ちろん飲まれる患者
patients.
さんがちゃんとインフォームドコン
And
セ
I
ント
think we're in a situation where we can afford to give them this
した上ですけれ
treatment.
ども、使用許可を認めていただいてもいい段階に来ているのではないかというふうに考えています。アフリカでです
So this is not the best, but relatively carefully kind of sort of said, but okay. This is a far cry though from, oh, he said that we should prescribe it as a treatment. This sounds more like we don't have the data. We don't have the data. We don't really know. We need more. Maybe we can prescribe it. Right. So recommend ivermectin to all doctors for COVID-19 patients? I don't think that's true. He was incredibly cautious, admitted there's scant evidence. He's not the Japanese health ministry. So let's compare this to Japanese health ministry. Jesus, we are done. We're going to watch it again with everything that we've read so that we can have a better understanding.
Bro, do I have to sue CNN? They keep saying I'm taking horse dewormer. I literally got it from a doctor. CNN is saying I'm taking horse dewormer.
Yeah, what? So
They must know that that's a lie.
There's a lot of people saying it.
If CNN said that Joe Rogan used horse dewormer instead of like drug use, that is a little bit weird. Let's check this out real quick. Rogan said he took several medications for diagnosis, including the anti-parasitic drug ivermectin. So this is okay. They called it an anti-parasitic here. I don't see the word now, unless they like ghost edited this page, which I guess might be possible.
The podcast host, Joe Rogan, he came down with COVID. He says he's been taking the livestock dewormer ivermectin as well as other.
Okay, so he says it. So it's dumb. I've said this a million times. Just stop calling it a horse dewormer. It's stupid. It makes you look dumb. Don't say it. It's just dumb to say that. Describing it as like an anti-parasitic is more accurate. Fauci should call out that horse dewormer we're talking about because conservatives are using it to their benefit. Yeah, maybe, but somebody already said like that train's kind of left the building because like left-leaning people like hardcore jumped all over that horse dewormer shit. If I'm being ultra charitable to left-leaning people or to CNN or whatever, now there were people that were actually going to stores and buying like the livestock dewormer versions, which is bad, but.
Joe Rogan, an extremely popular podcaster, announced on social.
Imagine if ivermectin actually turns out to be beneficial. Hey, this is something really important. I don't know if I emphasize this enough on stream, okay? When we go over stuff related to like hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, my statement is never, ever, 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 okay? I never say these drugs are not effective for treating COVID-19 or these drugs will never be effective for treating COVID-19. It's that right now, the clinical evidence does not support the efficacy for these drugs treating COVID-19. It might be the case that ivermectin in some regimen or as part of some larger protocol, it might be the case that ivermectin is actually like really beneficial. That could be the case. And if it is the case, that would actually be really cool. So ivermectin is very cheap. It's widely available. There's been lots of studies on it in terms of its safety and everything. That would be awesome. But right now, that evidence doesn't exist. So be clear when you say that too, because you don't want to get wrapped up in some narrative where you're like, oh, it's never going to be good. And then all of a sudden the clinical data comes out. It's like, oh, it is good. Now you have to eat your words and everything, right?
One of those drugs he mentioned, ivermectin, is something more often used to deworm horses. CDC says there's no evidence it works on COVID. Its increased usage has only led to a substantial increase.
So like, that's just not a good statement. Like, that's just not a good statement, bro, right? Like well, I don't know what the most common usage is, but like it has been prescribed over, I'm pretty sure, hundreds of millions of times in humans. What was it? What was the thing? Like over 2 billion dosages given? 3.7 billion doses ivermectin have been administered as of this pre-COVID January 2020 paper. Okay.
Increase in overdoses after a push by some on the far right seeding vaccine misinformation. Perspective now from our chief media correspondent and anchor.
So this is really bad messaging, right? So let's pretend, for instance, that we had no ideological predispositions or biases, okay? Let's pretend that we just had a good understanding of what ivermectin was, of derivative drugs made off of it. Ivermectin, the Nobel Peace Prize in 2015, its use in antiparasitic drugs. Let's say that we understood that there was a mechanism of action where, at least in vitro, a study had been published in Australia showing that that ivermectin seems to inhibit nuclear transport for the SARS-CoV-2 virus that would cause it to replicate and be more infectious, right? So if we knew all these things, and then we listen to somebody talk about ivermectin, and they're like, oh, you're taking ivermectin? That's a horse dewormer, bro, right? It's kind of not, I mean, like, yeah, but not that wouldn't be like the way to describe it, right? That's like really stupid. Don't do this. I maintain that I think I said this from the beginning. I made fun of people that were actually taking horse dewormer, but I'm pretty sure like a week or two ago, I was saying like, stop calling it horse dewormer. It's just stupid. Don't say that. Don't call it horse dewormer. Okay.
CNN's reliable sources, Brian Stelter and Dr. Lena Wen, CNN medical analyst.
I'm just curious. We'll just listen through CNN here. We'll see if they say anything that's like good or bad relating to stuff that we know, understand better.
For Baltimore Health Commissioner. Brian, this is obviously someone who has said on his podcast that healthy young people probably don't need to get vaccinations. What's he saying about his condition?
Yeah, and he is one of the most influential figures in all of media, especially among young men. He has a podcasting deal with Spotify worth $100 million, but in the past he has downplayed the vaccine. And in this case, he seems to have admitted he has COVID because it's hurting him in the pocketbook. He had to postpone or reschedule one of his upcoming stage shows. So you'd think the economic consequences might get people's attention and make people think, make his fans think differently about the threat of COVID. But he's trying to portray this as if he is feeling better now, he's doing better now because of this cocktail of drugs and medications that he has taken. Of course, some of these are under emergency use authorizations. Others have been, discouraged by the CDC and the FDA. But when you have a horse deworming medication that's discouraged by the government, that actually causes some people in this crazed environment we're in to actually want to try it. That's the upside down where we're in with figures like Joe Rogan.
So again, it's not really the most accurate analysis of ivermectin in use in humans. Not good. Let's see if we get something better from lady on the right.
So, Dr. Wen, ivermectin apparently given to deworm animals. Why are people using this? I mean, I know, it's being spread online and stuff.
Okay,
but
so we know the answer to this. Let's see if she gives us a good answer.
What is the theory that it works?
Well, I think there are some people who want to believe that there is a magic pill for COVID, which of course we would all want. But this is the main issue. So with ivermectin, not only is it that we know, not only are we saying that there's no evidence it works, it goes beyond that. We actually know that it doesn't work. There was a systematic review looking at 10 randomized controlled trials that have been done, that were done in different countries, looking at different doses of ivermectin. And they found that there was no benefit for ivermectin in reducing mortality, death to COVID-19.
So everything she's saying is right with a lot of qualification. But even if I'm being really charitable here, I would say that this qualifies as just misinformation. There is a theorized way for how ivermectin, this is really recent, right? This was published 2 weeks ago. There is an underlying mechanism of action that we understand, at least in vitro, for why ivermectin would help with a COVID-19 disease. To say that like there's no reason at all to think that's not really true at all.
No reduction in symptoms or duration of symptoms for COVID-19.
But now everything else she's saying there's a human treatment is true, but like why not start off with like a slightly more accurate answer before saying that like in humans it doesn't work? Like, that's why I'm saying like technically everything she's saying is true. Hold on. Destiny, no, you're wrong. You didn't look through the in vitro paper. The molar concentration is not even close to achievable therapeutic doses. Actually, we did look through it. Not that particular paper, but a response to another paper citing it. And we do understand that. That is actually true, what you're saying. So I think it's called, am I going to remember this? It was the IC50, which stands for the inhibitory something. What was it? Oh, concentration. But yeah, basically, at the prescribed ivermectin doses that you would take for a human, you're never going to reach the concentration you need in blood plasma or in pulmonary tissue to ever treat COVID-19. That doesn't seem to be the case. So we do know that, because we read this fucking today, because we spent all fucking day reading about this shit, okay? We do know that. That is true. But I still think it's okay to mention that, right? Like, have some common factual ground here instead of being like, oh, no, there's no fucking way that this could ever work, right? That's all I'm saying, yeah? Okay.
It does not work. And so when everything is risk and there is no benefit, then this is not something that should be done. And I think the greater harm here is that it provides this false reassurance. People are now going about not getting vaccinated, saying that they can do whatever they want with the understanding that there is this magic pill to save them at the end of the day.
Why would she mention a mechanism of action that may work in vitro when this isn't how medicines are evaluated? Okay, so you're right in that. This is why I'm saying that, this is why I said in the beginning, everything she's saying is technically true, okay? However, let's just watch this, hold on.
Hey, except that it's not a magic pill that actually works.
And can you explain the downsides of taking it?
Well, every medication has side effects. And in this case, especially because people are using doses that are totally inappropriate. I mean, ivermectin is used in humans for things like parasites and scabies.
Okay, so what I was gonna say at the end of this is, they haven't even said yet that ivermectin is used in humans. We've got 3.5 minutes into this CNN segment. I didn't even know that ivermectin was a human drug. This whole time, it sounds like something exclusively used in livestock, right? So finally, we get to the point where they say like, hey, this actually is used as an antiparasitic drug, right?
Especially because people are using doses that are totally inappropriate. I mean, ivermectin is used in humans for things like parasites and scabies, but those are at low doses. When people are taking them in the very high doses as given for livestock, for horses, for example, then they could get nausea, vomiting, diarrhea.
Okay, so her section in its entirety, on its own, I think is okay, because she seems to mention that. But coming off the two of these people, I think that we need to clarify immediately that this isn't just like a livestock medication.
Severe skin rash, extremely low blood pressure, and permanent liver damage. You could also die from overdoses of ivermectin. And I hope that people realize this and heed the advice of public health experts rather than Joe Rogan.
Dr. Lena Wan, Brian Salter.
Yeah, okay. When people ask, like, is misinformation like a big deal? I'm just saying, like, if you come to this and you already know a little bit about what's being said, and you're getting this like, oh, this horse dewormer that no way to ever treat or blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, this isn't really that true, right? Like, it feels like we're being... Yeah. Let's go all the way back to this. So Joe Rogan does have a point here that CNN's like categorization of it as a horse dewormer is pretty dumb.
Okay. Like the internet says it, who cares?
Sure.
But CNN is saying...
But here's the danger, okay? Let me point you the danger here, is that CNN calls it a horse dewormer, and Joe Rogan says that it is a Nobel Prize-winning drug that's prescribed to humans. Well, who's more correct here? Joe Rogan is kind of more right here. And that's the problem. Now that CNN has kind of damaged its credibility if you're watching it from like a horse deworming point of view, well, now Joe Rogan actually brings up a good point. Hold on, wait a second. I hear horse dewormer so much. You're telling me this is a Nobel Prize winning classification or category of drugs, the ivermectin series of drugs or whatever? Series? I don't know if that's correct. The ivermectin classification of drugs or whatever. That these are all like anti-parasitic drugs that are prescribed to humans, like billions of doses? Well, hold on. Now Joe Rogan sounds like he's about to spill some truth, right? Because it sounds like CNN and MS, or all these other media outlets might just be lying about it, right? This is the problem with starting with a little piece of misinformation, you know?
Saying it. Like Jim Acosta.
I meant like USA Today, a few other
Yeah.
places,
And they're
not just
talking
people.
about ivermectin, right?
Yeah.
So what? Because I don't know. I just saw so much news
Yeah.
about you. I mean, I talked to you and check on you and see if you're all right. And you're like, you threw the kitchen sink at it. You said,
Yeah.
which was stuff that you took IV drips and was it
monoclonal antibodies.
And then what is monoclonal antibodies?
It's the shit they gave Trump.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what? So who said, or did you already want ivermectin? Like,
Well, I had this guy on, Dr. Pierre Corey, and
So in terms of what they gave Trump like 8 different things. It wasn't just the monoclonal antibodies. They gave him a lot, right?
what is the organization he's from? Frontline COVID critical care workers. He's a well-established doctor. He's treated thousands.
So now we know more. So the FLCCC is tantamount to medical lunacy. We don't trust anything these people say. This is not like a credible organization. It's not like a whole giant body of doctors that are going through peer-reviewed evidence. It's a bunch of people that want to create like novel protocol treatments for COVID-19. It's not like, and this guy's like treated thousands of patients, blah, blah. No, he was like an ICU doctor, I think.
He's a well-established doctor. He's treated thousands of people with COVID, and they've early on in the pandemic they found some good efficacy with ivermectin. Frontline 19 Critical Care Alliance.
okay.
Yeah.
That group, so people are really good at making group names that sound like very official, like the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Workers. That sounds like a really true, real, awesome group, right? But it's not, right? These are like, we don't care about these people. And that Dr. Pierre Corey guy is not a super well-established doctor that has like good evidence relating to ivermectin, right? The guy was quoting studies that we saw that had like literally fabricated data. Not to say that he fabricated data, but that he was quoting studies. The largest pro-ivermectin study was fabricated and plagiarized, both.
So I had him on, and he had talked to me about. He's not the only doctor that told me to take it. Multiple doctors told me to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is obviously, I'm not a doctor. It says ivermectin was found to be a blocker of viral replicase, REPLICASE protease, and I don't know what this word is. Human TMPRSS2. I don't know. But what they didn't highlight is that I got better.
So he's half right in what he's quoting here. So we know this. It was not shown to be effective at treating the SARS-CoV-2 virus or eliminating it in humans. It was shown to be effective in vitro at concentrations that were magnitudes of order larger than what you could ever prescribe orally or intravenously to a human. I don't know if you can give ivermectin intravenously, but I didn't see that in any of the studies, right? The doses that you would need to get to, or the dosage that you would need to actually get the concentration of this drug adequately in your body to get that effect that was seen in vitro, not in a person, not in vivo, but in vitro, is way, 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 way higher than what people are doing for the prescriptions for the off-label prescription use of this drug today, right? So Rogan is like half right, and I would argue misleading when he's citing this Australian study here.
Replicase, REPLICASE protease, and I don't know what this word is. Human TMPRSS2. I don't know. But what they didn't highlight is that I got better.
Yeah, you got better quickly.
They try to make it seem as if like I'm doing some wacky shit that's completely ineffective. And
right.
CNN was saying that I'm a distributor of misinformation. Also, that was the other thing that happened. In Tokyo, in Japan, which is apparently they're very conservative about the medication that they use and the medications that they endorse. But the Tokyo Medical Association chairman held a live press conference recommending ivermectin to all doctors for all COVID patients.
So we watched this video. He didn't recommend it to all doctors for all patients. What he said very cautiously was that off-label prescriptions might be viable, but we don't have the data to really know. But if you want to try it, go for it. We watched the video of him speaking. And we do know that the Tokyo Medical Association, the Japanese Medical Association or whatever, this is not a governmental body that makes decisions about health. It's just like an organization of doctors that fight for like physician like insurance rights and payback and everything. And I think they did a couple other things for medicine as well. But like this isn't like their this isn't like their Ministry of Health and Labor and whatever. This isn't their actual it's not like their FDA or whatever. But he kind of makes it sound like that when he says like, oh, they're Tokyo Medical Association or whatever, right?
So what's going on with it's kind of hard to figure out what's the truth in a lot of things. But with regard to this, people go, it's insane to take ivermectin. Like you see it everywhere. Everyone's like, this is wild. Don't take this shit. And then you have the head of the fucking Tokyo whatever medical commission saying,
so like you can see that this guy is an example of somebody that like he heard what Joe Rogan said, and now that's what he's heard. Like, oh, this is like the head of the like Tokyo medical shit, right? He got that from what Rogan said, which is what most viewers probably took away from it.
This is wild. Don't take this shit. And then you have the head of the fucking Tokyo whatever medical commission saying, take ivermectin.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, man. You know, there's a lot of speculation. One of the speculations involves the emergency use authorization for the vaccines. That in order for there to be an emergency use authorization, there has to be no treatment for a disease.
Right.
So because there is this treatment in ivermectin, and there's other treatments too.
Right.
Because of this, there's a lot of pushback against potential treatments and pretending that they don't really work or that they're conspiracy theories. This is the grand conspiracy, right?
So Rogan at least admits this is a grand conspiracy that he asserts literally without evidence.
Conspiracy is the pharmaceutical companies are all in cahoots to try to make anybody who takes this stuff look crazy. But what's crazy is look how better I got.
Yeah.
I got better pretty quick, bitch.
And then this is, so we can just like philosophically, deductively, inductively, his arguments here don't actually make sense. First of all, he said he took multiple things, not just ivermectin. He also mentioned the monoclonal antibodies, which I believe also aren't shown to have worked, and other things, superdose of vitamin C, some other shit I think he mentions later. But it could also just be the case that Joe Rogan is like not that old. He's reasonably healthy. He might not have any comorbidities. He might just get like COVID-19, have like a mild case, and be done with it in 2 days. It doesn't mean that like this is what cured it. He's just one person, you know?
Morning I got tested, turned out positive, and then just...
This is Sunday?
Mm-hmm, Sunday.
So Sunday you find out you're positive, and then that day you feel sick, right? You're just in bed, relaxed.
Yeah,
that's even more crazy actually then. I'm sorry, because now I'm looking this up. There is an emergency use authorization for monoclonal antibody therapy. Why does he trust the EUA for the monoclonal antibodies, but not for the vaccine? And also, if he took something that had EUA approval, emergency use authorization approval, why would he assume that the ivermectin is what made him better and not the monoclonal antibodies? Why would he assume it's the ivermectin, right? His logic inductively is like not making any sense at all here. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Say headache, sick, weak.
Do you immediately, this is what I hadn't asked you yet. Did you have a plan in place in your head for like, if I get COVID, I would do these? So when you find out you're positive, you start reaching out for these treatments?
Yeah, I already had it in place.
You did?
Yeah, I was already ready to go.
So, and then you start taking them that day?
Yeah, I got it. I got all the stuff that I needed, took it that day. And then Monday I felt pretty fucking good. And I was taking vitamin IV drips every day, high dose vitamin C, vitamin D, and NAD as well.
Hold on, let's listen to this. Hold on.
They showed, there was a study that showed that if you've had a previous COVID infection, you're 6 to 13 times more protected than you are with just a Pfizer.
Yeah,
That is true, but I wish he would mention the other part of that COVID study, which is if you were previously infected, because that came out of Israel, if you were previously infected and you had a dose, just one dose of the Pfizer, you were twice as immune, you had twice the immunity as somebody with only a natural infection. But he doesn't bring that part up. Why?
No, I gave up the argument. I was arguing with my cousin, who's an ID doctor.
What's an ID doctor?
Infectious disease doctor. So this is what she treats. She's in the hospitals, every day. And she was like, when the Delta variant came out, she was like, this thing is no joke. She's like, this is all I'm seeing. You have to get vaxxed, especially if you're going on tour. I was like, well, what about, whatever. I was like, fine, I'll just go.
Yeah. Well, it didn't bother you.
Yeah, it didn't bother me.
I'm still doing that. Like I'll still hawk up little green shit.
Yeah.
Here and there.
Yeah. What, a week out?
A week yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not that long.
But it doesn't feel bad.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I had a great workout
today.
Yeah, I had a great workout today. Felt great.
I would be so curious what his rationale is for thinking the monoclonal antibody stuff is safe when that has the same emergency use authorization as the vaccine. Huh. We looked up a whole Joe Rogan video. We learned a whole lot of shit. Ivermectin is still garbage. The FLCCC is insane. Dr. Pierre Corey guy is fucking crazy. Vaccines still seem to be really good. Japan does not recommend taking fucking ivermectin. That's not true. Don't call it a horse dewormer, guys. You all sound dumb. There is no grand FDA conspiracy around the EUA for the vaccine, or if there is, we haven't seen any evidence of it. I don't know this idea that ivermectin is being suppressed. Joe Rogan getting better doesn't mean that it's because ivermectin worked, especially when he used a treatment that has been shown to work. It's been giving emergency use authorization. Yeah, Jesus. Okay.